The infamous Belarani Dutta murder case of 1954. Taligung Police Station. Case number 116. Date, January 31, 1954. Offense under Indian Penal Code sections 302 and 201, homicide and concealment of evidence. As dawn transitioned into morning, the crisp winter breeze awaited the gentle touch of the rising sun. The shops in the Kaligat refugee market were still hours away from opening. However, the diligent cleaners had already awakened before the break of day. Their task was to cleanse and purify the place once the influx of people arrived. Thus, they commenced their duties early, though their movements remained sluggish until the day unfolded into a whirlwind of fervent activity. Among these diligent sweepers, one observant individual noticed 3 bundles wrapped in newspapers near a restroom close to the Kiratala crematorium. Familiar with the refuse surrounding them, he might have disregarded the bundles with a casual shrug and discarded them elsewhere. However, experience had taught him to discern between garbage and something else. Within moments, a crowd had gathered around the peculiar discovery. The Taligung police station was promptly informed. Police officers arrived at the scene, but before they could proceed, they had to disperse the onlookers who had been intently gazing at the bundles, analyzing their contents. Finally, they gingerly unwrapped the parcels, one after another. To their gruesome astonishment, the bundles contained severed arms, reaching up to the elbow joint, palm, fingers, wrist, and forearm, severed and dismembered. The newspapers used to conceal these grotesque body parts were dated November 21, the edition of Jugantar. January 30, 1954. A serene afternoon. Following his lunch, the diligent guard of Kaligat Park embarked on his customary stroll amidst the tranquil winter ambience. As he wandered around the trees, his gaze suddenly fixated on a peculiar sight hidden behind the trunk of a mango tree. What lay concealed within the thick undergrowth of bushes and weeds? 4 meticulously wrapped newspaper parcels, secured with coconut coil ropes. Intrigued, he swiftly tore open the newspapers, oblivious to the imminent consequences. The chilling contents that greeted his eyes unleashed an overwhelming wave of terror. The guard, gripped by hysteria, unleashed shrill screams and frantically dashed in disarray. His frenzied behavior promptly caught the attention of passers-by, who swiftly gathered around the enigmatic parcels. One contained dismembered limbs, 2 legs extending from the knee to the sole. Another held the fragmented upper torso of a woman, divided into 3 portions. The third parcel contained a head, cruelly disfigured with gouged eyes, torn ears, and ripped lips, deliberately rendering the face unrecognizable. Only a few strands of hair clung desperately to the mutilated head. The fourth packet unveiled a lifeless, fully developed fetus, destined for birth mere days or hours away. Officers from the esteemed Taligung police station rapidly converged upon Kaligat Park, still reeling from the morning's macabre discovery. They were soon joined by members of the homicide department from Lalbazar, the eminent headquarters of the Kolkata Police. All 4 parcels shared a common origin, Jugantar newspaper. The editions from November 21, 1953, January 10, 1954, January 25, 1954, and January 26, 1954 had been employed to construct these chilling enigmas. The sheer brutality of this heinous act shook everyone present, from the gathering crowd to the investigating police officers, who meticulously collected the parcels and other crucial evidence. The park underwent a meticulous search, unearthing yet another parcel concealed within its depths. This time it revealed 2 portions of severed thighs, swathed in none other than Jugantar newspaper. February 27, 1954. The clock struck past midnight in the somber interrogation room of Lalbazar, the esteemed headquarters of the Kolkata Police. Seated on a chair, a man in his mid-30s exhibited utter exhaustion, drained by the grueling impact of an extended interrogation. The questioning had commenced in the evening and showed no signs of abating. Nevertheless, the resolute young man had managed to remain unperturbed during the arduous initial hours, adamantly denying any involvement. Such is the course of every challenging case. The accused refrains from confessing to the crime in the initial stages, granted the freedom to present their defense. They are permitted to speak without opposition, devoid of arguments. The investigators diligently record their statements, maintaining an impassive demeanor that conceals their thoughts. Gradually, complacency settles in as the individual being interrogated grows confident in the acceptance of their falsehoods as facts. It is at this juncture that the true game of intellect unfolds. The investigators adeptly draw attention to the countless loopholes, lies, and contradictions interwoven within the narrative. Now, there is no recourse for the accused to continue concealing the truth. That very night, the tenacity of the man began to waver. His strength depleted, and the weight of anxiety transformed him into a trembling wreck, evident from the glistening beads of perspiration dotting his forehead. His dogged resistance was beginning to crumble. Samrendranath Ghosh, the officer in charge of the homicide section, had discerned that the tried and tested method was yielding remarkable results. All he needed was a little more patience. Finally, the man succumbed to the mounting pressure. "Sir, I killed her. I dismembered her. There was no other way." Uttering these words, he concealed his face within his hands and rested his head upon the table before him. Samrendra experienced a surge of relief, yet he betrayed no hint of this emotion. Instead, he lifted a glass of water from the table and offered it to the man. "Here, drink some water. The rest you can divulge at your leisure." The night had passed, and the first light of dawn was beginning to grace the horizon. In recent times, numerous instances of gruesome murders have unfolded across various regions of India and abroad, capturing significant media attention. Television channels and the internet have served as primary sources for our knowledge of these cases. Some have even become subjects of films and daily soap operas. Nevertheless, it is evident from documented evidence that a case like the Belarani Dutta murder was a rarity during that period, both in India and worldwide, due to its primitive and savage display of violence. Undoubtedly, the case sent shockwaves throughout Kolkata, causing a sensation that, although diminished with time, still persists today. The Belarani Dutta murder remains a landmark example within the realm of criminology research, classified as one of the rarest of rare cases. Upon the recovery of the dismembered body parts, the Kolkata Police Commissioner swiftly entrusted the case to the Detective Department of the Kolkata Police, a specialized division boasting some of the nation's finest investigators. Leading the investigation would be Samrendranath Ghosh. On January 31, during the post-mortem examination, doctors painstakingly endeavored to reconstruct a semblance of the human form from the retrieved remains. It took them 7 to 8 arduous hours to approximate the shape of a female body. Two distinct features stood out on the corpse laid upon the examination table, notably large feet and a deep-cut mark on the left thigh. The presiding doctor unequivocally attributed the cause of death to a sharp object near the neck, deeming it antemortem and homicidal according to medical terminology. The numerous other wounds, which were abundant, had been inflicted post-mortem and were classified as post-mortem injuries. Now, the police confronted the most arduous aspect of the investigation, the identification of the victim. Unquestionably, establishing the victim's identity was crucial to uncovering the identity of the perpetrator. However, this task was far from easy. The facial skin had been forcibly removed, leaving the face severely mutilated. However, the investigators refused to surrender easily. They sought the expertise of Dr. Murari Mohan Mukherjee, the head of the plastic surgery department at Kolkata's Karnani Hospital. Dr. Mukherjee, residing in Chinchura of Hooghly district, approximately 70 kilometers away from Kolkata, was renowned in his field. Approaching the task with a mix of hope and apprehension, Dr. Mukherjee employed plastic surgery techniques to reconstruct the victim's face, attempting to restore its original appearance before the disfigurement occurred. The doctor's mastery was awe-inspiring. He crafted a countenance from a mutilated head severed from the body. However, due to the onset of putrefaction and consequential changes in the muscles and tissues, the outcome fell short of Dr. Mukherjee's aspirations. This marked one of the pioneering instances in India where plastic surgery was employed in a police investigation, contributing to the unique nature of the Belarani Dutta murder case in the annals of criminal investigations in the country. Photographs of the surgically reconstructed face were circulated through newspapers, appealing to the public for assistance in identification. Regrettably, no response was received, and the investigation showed no progress even after a week. The identity of the woman remained unknown to all. 20 days later, as per protocol, the body, preserved in the morgue of Nil Ratan Sarkar Medical College and Hospital, had to be cremated, with hair and bone samples retained for future reference. During this period, the Kolkata Police conducted a meticulously organized operation. Hundreds of individuals residing in or passing through the areas where the body parts were discovered were interviewed. Information was disseminated to police departments throughout West Bengal, urging them to be vigilant for any potential missing persons reports. Unfortunately, no significant leads emerged from these efforts. A month had elapsed, and by the last week of February, the investigation remained at a standstill. When relentless endeavors fail to yield positive results, a sense of despondency can seep in. Thoughts such as, "It's all right. It's not entirely my fault. I've tried my best. Many cases go unsolved," begin to echo in one's mind. However, Samrendra was not one to easily succumb to defeat. His dedication mirrored that of German footballers, not Brazilians or Argentinians. Even on the brink of adversity, he held steadfast in his belief that victory was still within reach. He cherished courage over investigative flair, relying on patience and perseverance. It is often said that fortune favors the brave and those who refuse to accept defeat. For them, even the tiniest glimmer of hope can ignite a spark. On the evening of February 25, around 9:30 p.m., Samrendra, feeling weary and unwell due to a persistent cough and cold, was on his way home after a long and exhausting day. As his official vehicle traversed the route between Taligung and Rash Bihari Avenue, a thought struck him: he needed to purchase a bottle of cough syrup. Approaching Rusa Road, he noticed two adjacent medicine stores. One of them, Royal Medical Store, was closing for the day, while the other, South Medical Pharmacy, remained open. Instructing the driver to halt the car, Samrendra decided to try his luck at the latter. The dilapidated store presented a rather unimpressive sight. Its shelves were nearly bare, with only a few medicine strips and scattered bottles remaining. The lone employee present perfectly matched the lackluster ambience, bored and disgruntled. However, upon noticing a customer alighting from a police vehicle, he roused himself from his stupor. "I need a cough syrup," Samrendra requested. "Let me see if I can find one, sir," the employee replied. After a few minutes of searching, he returned with a disappointing response. "I can offer you medicines for fever and headache. Unfortunately, our stock of cough syrup needs to be replenished." Samrendra sighed. "Then what's the point of keeping a shop like this open? Why not shut it down? And where is the owner?" "Unfortunately, sir, he hasn't visited the shop even once in the past month." "I see. That explains it. What's his name?" "Tell him to close the shop." "His name is Biren Dutta, sir. I've sent him messages multiple times, but he usually drops by every evening. This is the first time I haven't seen him for such a long period." Unable to procure the cough syrup, Samrendra returned to his car and instructed the driver to resume their journey. However, the conversation lingered in his mind: he hasn't visited the shop even once in the past month. This is the first time I haven't seen him for such a long period. Driven by a nagging sense of curiosity and discomfort, Samrendra instructed the driver to turn around. Numerous questions plagued his thoughts, and he needed to alleviate his unease before finding peace at home. Samrendra's relentless pursuit of truth and his aversion to complacency fueled his determination. Quickly obtain the address of the shop's owner, he instructed his driver. The address provided was April 2, 55 Turf Road, near Shambhunath Pandit Hospital. Despite his fatigue and nagging cough, Samrendra found it difficult to resist the urge to visit the location immediately. As expected, the room was locked. Neighbors informed Samrendra that Biren Dutta had been residing there for many years with his wife Bella and their 6-year-old son. Biren had mentioned that his pregnant wife had been admitted to Shirshu Mongol Hospital at the end of January. However, neither Biren nor his son had been seen by the neighbors since January 30. This information sparked a sudden surge of adrenaline. Only investigators who have cracked challenging cases can truly understand the rush of excitement that courses through their veins when they realize they are on the right trail. It didn't take more than half an hour to confirm that no one named Bella Dutta had been admitted to Shirshu Mongol Hospital in the past month. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. The homicide department officers delved deeper to uncover the traces of this elusive character. Biren Dutta's name, the shop he owned, and his residence were known, and the neighbors had provided detailed descriptions of him. It was inconceivable that this man could evade detection now. Within just 24 hours, the police managed to gather comprehensive information about everything Biren Dutta had ever done in his life. Apparently, Biren Dutta had another address on Harish Mukherjee Road, not far from Turf Road. The police placed this location under surveillance. In the early hours of February 27, a man with his face concealed by a shawl emerged from 102A, Harish Mukherjee Road. He was discreetly followed until he reached Kedar Bose Road, where a plainclothes policeman intercepted him. "Are you Biren Dutta?" the officer abruptly asked, catching Biren off guard and denying him the opportunity to fabricate another name to deceive the policeman. "Yes, but why do you ask?" Biren Dutta replied, his voice filled with curiosity and suspicion. "Just answer my questions." "Is Bella Dutta your wife?" the officer pressed. "Yes, but why are you asking about her?" Biren responded, growing increasingly concerned. "Get in the car. We're from Lal Bazar. We'll discuss the rest there." Biren Dutta, also known as Bashu, was 34 years old. He had spent his childhood in a village near Budge Budge in North 24 Parganas, a district bordering the northern outskirts of Kolkata. Tragedy struck his family at an early age when his father, a sub-inspector in the West Bengal Police Force, passed away when Biren was only a year old, followed by the death of his mother a few months later. His two sisters, Abba and Kanak, were married and lived in Undul, in Howrah district, and Kolkata, respectively. With both parents gone, Biren had to stay with his grandmother in the village and was enrolled in a local school. His cousins, Nabani and Jyotindra, sons of his father's younger brother, lived in Chandranath Chatterjee Street in Kolkata's southern part. When Biren was around 8 or 9 years old, his cousins brought him to Kolkata and admitted him to Ramrik Institution. However, Biren's school life was far from successful. He performed poorly academically, regularly skipped classes, and spent his time watching adult films, smoking, and drinking. Frustrated with his behavior, his cousins scolded him and even resorted to slapping him. This only pushed Biren further away, and the defiant teenager, then in 8th grade, left his cousin's home in anger. He sought refuge in the house of his sister Abba in Undul. Abba's husband owned a medicine store, and Biren helped with various tasks and worked in the business. Between 1934 and 1944, Biren stayed with his sister and brother-in-law in Undul. However, his cousin Nabani, who had initially brought him to Kolkata, still cared deeply for their Bashu. Nabani maintained regular contact with the cousins and often visited Abba's home. During one such visit, Nabani noticed that Bashu seemed distraught. Filled with love and compassion for his cousin, Nabani made an instant decision to bring him back to Kolkata. Biren, now 24 years old, had returned to Kolkata and resumed living with his cousin Nabani. During this time, Nabani's affectionate husband gifted Biren a medicine store called South Calcutta Pharmacy on Rusa Road, along with all the necessary legal documents. Biren's heartache for his cousin's absence and his longing for companionship were alleviated by this generous gesture. Back in Kolkata, Biren found himself living with Nabani once again. However, something unexpected happened. Biren and Nabani's daughter, Kamala, fell deeply in love with each other. Their relationship was complicated by the fact that Biren was Kamala's uncle, making them close blood relatives. Aware that their relationship would never be accepted by their family, Biren and Kamala made the decision to elope. They rented a room on Sadananda Road, not far from Nabani's house. Nabani attempted to separate the two, delivering sermons and offering advice, but their love was unwavering. These attempts only led to heated arguments and further strained relationships. Realizing that his efforts were futile and that his own daughter had surrendered herself to love, Nabani decided to step back and withdraw from the situation, hoping that it would alleviate his own suffering. He chose not to file a police complaint against his cousin, fearing that it would bring shame upon his name and social standing, rather than successfully separating the young lovers. Biren and Kamala, now known as Belarani, started a new life in their Sadananda Road home. Biren gave her a new name to symbolize their union. Although Belarani desired a legally registered marriage, Biren, always rebellious and defiant, refused to comply. He believed that applying sindoor, vermilion, on her hair parting was sufficient evidence of their marriage. Belarani, intoxicated with love, accepted her fate and they presented themselves as husband and wife to their neighbors. Within a couple of years, they welcomed a son named Bethindranath Dutta, affectionately known as Botone. After their son's birth, they moved to their residence on Turf Road, gradually causing Biren's relationship with Bella to grow colder. In Biren's life, a new excitement emerged, Meera. Biren eventually married Meera, the daughter of Saroj Kanthi Basu from Sri Krishna Lane. This time, he opted for a registered marriage to demonstrate his devotion to Meera. The only individuals who were aware of the existence of both women in Biren's life were his sisters and brothers-in-law. They had never fully accepted Biren's marriage with Bella, so they tacitly supported his marriage with Meera, hoping it would lead to Biren and Bella's separation. During the first 2 years of their marriage, Meera resided with Biren's sister in her Goabigan house. During this time, she gave birth to a daughter, who tragically passed away within a few days. Meera was devastated by the loss, but eventually regained her composure. She requested that Biren find a place for just the two of them. How could a woman have her own home and family while living in someone else's house? Finally, Biren yielded to Meera's persistent pleas and rented a small room at 102A, Harish Mukherjee Road. In 1953, Biren and Meera welcomed a son. Biren led a life of deceptive duplicity, becoming adept at fooling those around him on a daily basis. Despite the short distance between Turf Road and Harish Mukherjee Road, he took great care to ensure that Meera and Bella remained unaware of each other's existence for months. He would visit the house on Turf Road and have lunch with Bella, while Meera believed that her husband's busy work schedule led him to grab a quick meal at the YMCA canteen. Most nights, Biren spent at the rented room on Harish Mukherjee Road with Meera and their son, while Bella was informed that he had to make frequent trips outside Kolkata to purchase medicine consignments. Biren possessed an unsettling lack of conscience, skillfully maneuvering through a deceptive double life. If only he had an abundance of wealth, Biren might have successfully maintained this facade until the very end. From his early years, he showcased a natural flair for acting, captivating audiences in theatre and jatra. It remains uncertain whether his innate talent for dramatics and deceit in real life honed his skills as a thespian or if his theatrical prowess aided him in his duplicitous schemes. During his childhood, Biren participated in small-scale productions within his neighborhood. As time went on, he ventured into the realm of Taligung film studios, forging connections with several producers and directors of Bengali cinema at that time. He graced the screens in at least 6 films, including Kamona, the second feature of the esteemed Bengali matinee idol Uttam Kumar. Among his other notable appearances were in films like Nari, Mohakal, Shubhoda, Nishkriti, and Papar Pot Hai. The title of the latter film, Papar Pot Hai, meaning the path to sin, held literal significance in Biren's own life. His acquaintances in the film industry introduced him to the vices of racing, gambling, and sex workers. His already muddled existence descended into deeper obscurity. Gradually, his dedication to managing the medicine store waned, leaving its affairs solely in the hands of employees. Unsurprisingly, this negligence began to impact the business. The scarcity of funds, coupled with the burden of supporting 2 households, triggered a severe crisis. Biren struggled to stay afloat by any means necessary. However, matters hit rock bottom with the news of Bella expecting a second child. It drove him to the brink of madness. What would come to pass? I couldn't bear it any longer, sir. My business was teetering on the edge of collapse. I resorted to loans, exhausted from leading a dual existence and fabricating lies for both Mira and Bella. Paranoia plagued me as I feared the repercussions of being discovered. Mira grew suspicious, and before long, Bella began questioning my prolonged absences from home. "Why do you spend most nights away?" she would inquire. The thought of additional expenses entailed by another child filled me with dread. At that moment, I believed it was best to rid myself of her. Trust me, sir, I saw no alternative. Biren's harrowing account would undergo thorough investigation, but for now, the investigators chose to let him continue his narrative without interruption, allowing him to divulge more and more details. I feigned anger, vehemently declaring that the child was not mine. I accused her of taking advantage of my frequent absences. At first, she wept, but then a heated argument ensued. In Biren's twisted mind, his 6-year-old son, Boton, stood as the only obstacle to committing the heinous act of murder. However, Biren's fertile imagination conjured up a plausible story to present to Mira. He informed her that a dear friend and his wife had tragically perished in a car accident, leaving behind their only child, a 6-year-old orphan. With great pity filling Mira's heart, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. And so, on January 27, 1954, with Bella in the final stages of her pregnancy, Biren returned home from the pharmacy around 10:30 p.m., discovering Boton sound asleep. Bella served him dinner, and Biren silently consumed his meal. Abruptly, in a harsh tone, he declared, "I refuse to spend money on a child who isn't mine." His words were like a spark igniting Bella's dwindling patience. "Do you think I am oblivious to your affairs?" she retorted. Having been waiting for this moment, Biren unleashed a torrent of blows upon her. In a frenzied state, he hurried to the kitchen, seized a sickle, and struck her neck. Not content with a single blow, he continued to assail her lifeless form. She perished instantly. Biren then proceeded to empty a cupboard, placing her lifeless body inside. After cleansing away the blood, he meticulously removed all the gold jewelry adorning her, 6 sets of bangles, a ring, and earrings. With an eerie calmness, he retired to bed. The following morning, January 28, Biren meticulously executed his plan precisely as he had devised it. Benya Roy, a close friend of Bella's, resided alone on the first floor of the Turf Road house. She held great affection for Boton and would spend a significant part of her day with the child. In the morning, I contacted Benuti and informed her of Bella's urgent admission to Shirshu Mangal Hospital late the previous night, emphasizing that the delivery could occur at any moment. I asked if she would be willing to look after Boton for a few days. Benuti readily agreed. In the morning, Boton inquired about his mother. I informed him that she had been admitted to the hospital and would soon return with a baby brother or sister. Relieved that these practical matters had been taken care of, Biren set off for his medicine store to attend to the day's work. Bella's lifeless body remained locked inside the cupboard. Biren had meticulously devised his plan, considering every minute detail, including the disposal of the body. If the authorities were unable to locate the body, how would they ever trace him? Around 9:30 p.m., after the pharmacy employees had departed for the day, Biren set his plan into motion. He collected a stack of Jugantar newspapers from his shop and made his way directly to the Turf Road residence. With a calm and detached tone, Biren recounted the subsequent events to the investigators. I removed Bella's body from the cupboard. Using a sickle, I severed her head from her lifeless form. Methodically, I proceeded to dismember her, one body part at a time: ears, nose, hair, hands, feet, chest, and abdomen. I even peeled the skin from her face. Each segment was carefully wrapped in Jugantar newspapers and secured with coconut coil ropes before being returned to the cupboard, which I promptly locked. The room was drenched in blood, accompanied by a repugnant, decaying odor. Thus, I had to thoroughly wash the room multiple times with fennel. With this gruesome task completed, a sense of relief washed over Biren as he retired to sleep 2 consecutive nights with the lifeless body concealed within the cupboard. The following morning, he rose and headed to the pharmacy as usual, spending the entire day engrossed in work before returning home at nightfall. Biren retrieved all the meticulously wrapped packages and placed them inside 2 large, sturdy nylon bags typically used for family grocery shopping. He hailed a rickshaw and traveled near Kaligat Park, stopping a short distance away. Alighting from the rickshaw to ensure no witnesses, he discreetly deposited some of the packages within the park. The remaining parcels were left near Kiratala Crematorium, outside a public toilet, on the way back home. Upon his return to the Turf Road house, Biren embarked on another round of washing and cleaning the floor. This time, he diligently eliminated any splattered bloodstains and thoroughly cleaned the cupboard. The following morning, Biren coincidentally encountered Benuti as he prepared to leave for work. "How is Bella doing? I really want to visit her." "No, Benuti. There's no need for that. Perhaps the delivery will occur tonight. Her blood pressure is fluctuating, and the doctors have placed her in a private cabin. She'll be back home in no time." With remarkable ease, the seasoned actor effortlessly delivered the same lines to the other curious neighbors. Over the ensuing days, Biren relocated all of Bella's jewelry to the Harish Mukherjee Road residence, explaining to Meera that it served as collateral for money borrowed by a friend. He proceeded to dispose of Bella's clothing, cosmetics, and other everyday items into the Tali's Nala, a water channel running through the southwestern part of the city that essentially served as a sewer. Taking custody of Boton from Benuti, he journeyed to the Harish Mukherjee Road home. By this time, Meera eagerly awaited the arrival of the unfortunate orphaned boy whose parents had tragically perished in a road accident. The Kolkata Police meticulously assembled witnesses and evidence. Bella's jewelry was recovered from Harish Mukherjee Road, and the sickle utilized to perpetrate the murder and dismemberment was discovered at the Turf Road residence. Strands of Bella's hair were found entangled on the sickle and the fennel bottle. Dried blood stains were meticulously collected from the floor. The forensic report confirmed the presence of human blood and authenticated the woman's hair as belonging to the same individual. These pieces of evidence held significant weight in court. To establish the identity of the deceased woman as Belarani, the investigators obtained documents demonstrating her pregnancy. During their search of the Turf Road residence, the sleuths came across a ticket dated November 24, 1953, indicating a visit to a gynecologist at Shambhunath Pandit Hospital. This discovery held significant weight as evidence that Bella had visited the doctor while pregnant. Biren had an unusual habit of collecting old newspapers, and his pharmacy often contained yellowed and worn-out copies. All the newspapers from the pharmacy were seized, and as anticipated, a chronological arrangement revealed the absence of newspapers from certain dates. The missing newspapers happened to be the ones used to wrap and conceal Belarani's dismembered body parts. This circumstantial evidence carried great significance, as noted by the court during the trial. Belarani's relatives were immediately notified of the murder once it came to light and following Biren's arrest. Despite having lost touch with her for a considerable time, the brutal and savage murder of their beloved daughter left them in a state of disbelief and shock. When her father, uncle, brother, and sister gathered to meet with the investigators, they made an intriguing observation. The postmortem report had mentioned the unusually large feet of the deceased woman, and now the investigators noticed the same distinct feet among all her relatives. Could this be evidence that the murdered woman was indeed Belarani, also known as Kamala? To address this question, the Deputy Commissioner of the Detective Department composed a letter to Dr. S.S. Sarkar, the esteemed and renowned professor of Calcutta University's Anthropology Department. The letter inquired about the possibility of determining whether the traced feet belonged to the same family. Photographs of Kamala's feet, along with tracings of her father and uncle's feet, were included for examination by Dr. Sarkar. After studying the traces and photographs, the legendary Dr. Sarkar finally sent the much-anticipated letter to the police. His response confirmed that the feet indeed belonged to members of the same family. This further solidified the identification of the murdered woman. The investigators were gradually advancing toward a meticulous and comprehensive charge sheet, inching closer to a foolproof case. The absence of DNA testing during that time made all the previous investigations necessary. It was unfortunate that DNA tests were not yet available in 1954. It wasn't until 1986, in Leicester, England, that DNA testing started being used in criminal cases, particularly in connection with a rape and murder case. The decisive factor against Biren came from Belarani's mother's statement. "Remember the deep-cut mark on the left thigh of the deceased woman?" When investigators showed Bella's mother a photograph of the thigh, she burst into tears. She recalled that her young Kamala had injured herself when she was 8 years old, leaving a permanent mark on her thigh. Who could provide a more compelling testimony than a mother? With this crucial revelation, the charge sheet was finally filed in court. The charge sheet was so meticulously crafted that it could still serve as a model for investigators today on how to construct such a comprehensive document. During the trial at the Alipur Sessions Court, the defense lawyer argued that the unidentified woman was not Belarani at all. They claimed that she had eloped with a secret lover. However, through a series of intense court hearings, this claim was proven false. Arguments and counter-arguments ensued for 6 months. The court relied on documents containing circumstantial evidence and forensic test results, which ultimately led to its verdict: Biren Dutta was to be hanged until death. The higher courts, including the Calcutta High Court and the Supreme Court, upheld the same verdict. Biren Dutta was executed by hanging on the morning of January 28, 1956, for the murder of Belarani, also known as Kamala. If you found this video intriguing and thought-provoking, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to join our community of crime enthusiasts. Share this video with fellow true crime lovers, and let's engage in stimulating discussions in the comments section below.